Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Omar. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm just gonna adjust this so everybody can see me and properly. How are you, Nick?
Very good, very good. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Abu Dhabi Events, for having me, and very, very excited to just try to encourage everyone here. So thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Awesome. You know, Nick, like you have no idea the number of people who've been messaging me directly. They're like, "Oh my God, Omar, this is an awesome opportunity." For me, I know I'm a host, but you have no idea how much this household, not me, but this household is a fan of yours, Nick. So it's an honor to be speaking to you today.
Thank you very, very much. It's wonderful, and I have very fun memories going to Abu Dhabi and the UAE, and glad that we could do this virtually and
Yes.
encourage as many people as possible.
Awesome. So, Nick, you know, I think the first question, which, there's a lot of different questions people throw at you at the beginning, but my first question to you is, where do you get your sense of humor from? Seriously, where do you get your sense? Because you have an amazing sense of humor. Like, honestly, just watching you talk, you can make everything sound really funny, and the way you resonate with people when you speak about your story, it's just amazing. Like how you can just crack us up.
I was going to actually open up with a funny joke because, about me washing my hands so much in COVID. You know, I think it stemmed from me being loved at home, being told every day that I'm beautiful, and, encouraged that when children would look at me awkwardly, and even adults wouldn't know how to approach me, do they shake my hand or whatever, that they just said, be yourself and open your mouth and maybe even say something funny. So then they know that it's almost like a breaking of the ice. And so,
Yeah.
especially when up on stage as well, I'm using that more and more over the, teenage, younger 20-year-old, career years where people are wondering, what is this man without arms and legs going to be talking about? Is it going to be, making me feel sorry for him? Is it going to be, and then I get up there and, almost make fun of myself or my situation. And they're like, oh man, this guy's like relaxed. And so everyone kind of relaxes
Yeah.
and breathes a little bit. So I think that's something that's now just come out of my personality, but that's where I think it really stemmed from.
It's true, and you know what, Nick? It's in your face. Do people tell you this? Because honestly, like with your face, it's super calming. Like I look at you, and if I didn't know you didn't have arms or legs, it's just in you. It's amazing. It's beautiful. You just have this pure light, which is awesome. So
I'm so
keep
glad.
shining.
Thank you for the encouragement. We're supposed to shine in the world, and they say that the windows to your soul are your eyes. And so, the greatest thing I feel like we can ever feel is more than happiness. It's peace.
Mm.
Peace within yourself, peace with knowing who you are, your value, knowing that you're not an accident or a mistake or less valuable than anybody else. And so, I'm glad that people can see that peace and confidence, which is not a prideful confidence, but a humility to understand that everyone on this planet has value.
That's awesome, Nick. So, you know, one of the questions we have, I mean, we've got a lot of questions, and I hope we can try to get through them throughout this hour, you know, because I think with
Sure.
you, we can go on forever. But I'll start with this other question. Today's topic is, we're talking about how we can, how crises emerge, how opportunities emerge from crises, right? So, how does this apply to your life?
First of all, we need to be sober minded to understand that no crisis is good. When it's a crisis, and whether it's disunity in a country like America right now, or whether it's COVID, and whether or not it was the world economic crisis, every country has its different ups and downs. And first and foremost, we must understand that no crisis is good, no negative is positive, if you will. However, as you see society united and move forward, and unite and love and bridge and make the country's citizens as much as positioned for their full potential, happiness and prosperity. It's almost to, first of all, to answer that, we almost need to just look back and see, where have we come? no matter where we, live, we've all gone through ups and downs, our nations, our world. We've learned so much. And so understanding first that there's nothing good about having no arms and legs. I get to, I get to play hide and seek really well. I love having fun and love trying new things. And now I travel around the world and I've experienced a lot. But arms and legs itself would be great to have. However,
Yeah.
when we see broken pieces in our life, it doesn't mean that there won't be good that eventually comes from it. And sometimes when we look at it from a societal point of view, we need to actually be the instigator of that bridge, of that unity, of that love, of that hope, of that peace. And if it's something that's circumstantial, that's bigger than us, you're not going to find the obstacles now or in the future unless you use these next tools. Number one, first of all, the attitude of gratitude. You're still going to be thankful for, what you have, who you are, where you are, and not saying that this is the end. In the crisis, when emotions come, fear cripples us and stops us and takes over and control. But when we take control over emotions and accept what we feel, have the discussions that you need to have, but then still come back with an attitude of gratitude and say, this is not the end. This is the beginning of a new chapter, a new season, that through this, I'm going to become stronger. And I feel like the number two part of all this is the choice of never giving up. When you have an attitude of gratitude and a choice to never give up, then you can also study back and talk to people on, well, what opportunities did come from the last crisis? And so obviously we can see a man without arms and legs who's now a speaker traveling around the world. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4. I realize now that any of the fears that I had, that may have meant a lot to me, I couldn't imagine that even when I don't get a miracle, that I could still be a miracle for someone else. So whether that's understanding on a personal level, influencing society on a global level, or economically, I think we all understand that some of the biggest companies was birthed out of crisis and a time of tribulation and trial, where entrepreneurs, their backs were against the wall, and it formed them or forced them to rethink, think, rebirth, pivot, evolve, whatever the word they want to use, into something that, is a new level. And for me, I just want to say this last thing. I'm glad that we could do something like this, like live on Instagram, where this is an opportunity for me to really discover, with my deep, deep desire to slow down and get off the road, but to still make a difference in the world. This is just one example of that. And to also know that when you don't get a miracle, be a miracle. So I've been able to continue to use my story, and I feel like everyone has a story to share, and we all can make a difference. So no matter what obstacles we have, we know that from adversity, you bring strength, and it's not the end of your story. You can always help someone else.
That's beautiful. Nick, one of the things that you mentioned in a recent interview, which I love, very recent actually, where you said something about shock and then denial, and when you're faced with the crisis, and then, because, okay, you did just mention the attitude of gratitude. But then when a crisis happens, sometimes it's for a lot of people, I'm sure, as you mentioned, even for yourself, it was very difficult to accept that, oh my goodness, this is happening now. What do I do now? So how quickly would you advise people to kind of assume that attitude when they're faced with a crisis?
The first thing you have to do is give yourself some grace. Give yourself some time.
Yeah.
When January turned around, I actually got news that there were some events canceling. I was watching the world news. I was telling everyone back in America, hey, look, watch out for this. This is going to be pretty big. And even though I saw it coming, I was still in shock. I went into shock. I went into a mental block and a bit of panic. I mean, can you imagine that I was not diversified in business? My bread and butter is me speaking around the world.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that responsibility as an entrepreneur for your team, and not knowing as well how long is the unknown going to be remaining as an unknown?
Yes.
And so I think you need to go through that shock, that grief, that it takes some time to process what's going on. So I think I went through 4 weeks of mental block, 2 weeks of panic. And even though I have a strong faith, even though I have a strong family, even though I'm the motivational speaker, Nick Vujicic, I'm not afraid to say, I went into like, whoa. And I didn't kill myself for a month and a half. But then eventually you come to terms with that. You accept what you cannot change what you can. As an entrepreneur, you hustle, you try and make a plan. I mean, Omar, I tried to actually, in my life over the years, every 3 months I would do a whiteboard exercise session.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a whiteboard exercise session, not every 3 months, like every 3 days. Because I was like, every 3 days, the world was like, wait, this now happened. It was like, wow, what do I do now? And so it's something that I feel as human beings, we have to be in touch with what we feel, not suppress what we feel, express it, have those conversations even with yourself and those around you, get advice and counsel, but go through that. Give yourself time to process what you're feeling, because suppressing it isn't good.
You know, and Nick, on that point, you see how you just mentioned, like, you're actually working on your plans or your goals. I was going to ask you, so obviously this is the time to be thinking about setting goals and objectives. But, you know, when you set goals and objectives, you kind of put like a time in terms of how many months. But realistically now, what do you think for most of the people out there that would be the time bound for them to set like goals and objectives? Would it have to be something that they have to achieve within a month, 2 months, 3, rather than something to achieve it like within a year or 2?
Yes, I first feel we need to talk about the first paradigm of goal settings. We just talked about it on the Nick Vujicic podcast. If you haven't listened to the Nick Vujicic podcast, check it out on youtube.com/Nick Vujicic. One of the ones is called Resetting the Goalposts. And it's you understanding that, first of all, you can have your career goals, you can have different goals, but first and foremost is your soul, your spirit, and your mind. I've come to a point in my life where it feels as though I am not 37. And I've accomplished a lot. I am 37. I have accomplished a lot, but it helped me in this pause and reset to figure out, wait a second, if I have an opportunity to reset completely, what would have I done different? And then the question is, if I didn't get the chance to reset, would Nick have ever slowed down to the pace he always wanted to? The best year of my life was 2018, where I actually turned off my phone Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and was only on my phone Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. With 20 employees, I was able to have the best year of balance and time management and prioritization processes in place. 2019 was a curveball, and now look at 2020. Wow. Now looking at this, I've reset my goalposts in how I do things. I'm still Nick Vujicic. I'm still going to be a speaker, still an author, but it's given me a chance to reset how I do things, and the fulfillment plays a part in that. So for many people who maybe had aspirations to be, you know, someone who's going to start a franchise, or someone who's going to start in direct sales marketing, or someone's going to start, maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe it's years from now. I can't tell anyone what their timeline is, but I would first recommend the paradigm of decision-making, of resetting the goalpost that matters the most. What's most important to you? Whether I have $5 million or $1 million in the bank doesn't change anything for me. We know that money's money. Money comes and goes. But for me to be able to pivot in a way that fulfills my soul, that I stay at home, I don't even have to go in the car for this speech, right?
Yeah.
No time
Exactly.
zone, you know. And so for me, I've traveled the world. I've done 2,500 plane rides. And I feel like I don't want to do that ever again on that pace. And so resetting the goals, look, I won't say my predictions. I'm just going to say this. Some people predict that there'll be a second wave. If that happens, there'll be a second quarantine. If that happens, massive economic hurt. Here in America, unemployment runs out 9 or 12 months from now. Could be foreclosures of foreclosures of real estate. You just don't know. But don't focus on what you don't know. Focus on what you can know, do know, and take this time. Last thing on this. I know I'm going long on this, but
no, it's okay. Completely, please continue. Yeah.
This is really important. When we go into crisis, we want to get out. When we get out of rhythm, we want to get back into rhythm. I understand that. But what's beautiful about this is this disruption, this reset, to have even conversations and soul searching on levels you would not have had unless this happened. So don't miss the things you need to discover that you would only discover about yourself and your life and your purpose and your goals and your dreams if it weren't for this time in your life.
That's absolutely true. I think that's also the same for myself. You know, I learned to slow down and even connect even better with my family. And I think a lot of people out there are doing that, you know, just trying to realize it. And that's why we call this session Staying Curious, you know. So people are trying to discover new skills or learn new information and how to deal with themselves in the future. So what is one of the things, like for yourself, Nick, you're a motivational speaker. How are you staying motivated during this time?
I have to say, there's times I wake up and I'm not motivated. I'm like, wow, because it's so interesting on the subconscious level that, you know, many people, for instance, think of the athletes for a second, those going through university and their aspirations is to become a professional athlete. Now they can't even practice. They're not socializing. They can't do, and subconsciously reveals that we sometimes even put our confidence and values in our intellect and our ability and the affirmation of people and community, which none of that is unhealthy if it's healthy. But for me, I know my values more than just being someone that can offer the world something. My values as a human being doesn't change whether I'm a speaker or not, disabled or not, whatever race, religion I have, whoever I am. And it's really interesting, though, that it's sometimes good to remind yourself of long-term goals. We don't know what the short term looks like. We don't know what maybe the midterm looks like. But remind yourself of the long-term goals that you actually haven't worked on for a while. So many people even told me, you know, I just wish the world could just stop for a couple months so I can catch up with everything. Now the world stopped in a sense, and it feels like we're even busy, and it feels like we're even, you know, overwhelmed. But some people say one day, well, I want to write a book, and they never write a book. I want to write a letter to my great-great-great-grandkids that I'll never meet, and they never do it. I want to cross off this off my bucket list. Did you do it last year? How's your New Year's resolutions doing for 2020? Are they just now delayed for 12 months? Or is there something now that you can actually do with more heart, more passion, knowing what we know now? I think long-term goals are a good reminder factor to keep you motivated. The other thing, though, is very, very short-term goals. If anybody's feeling like they're struggling with a little depression, with a little feeling of overwhelmed or mental blocks or panic, I think setting smaller goals and maybe one or two a day. If you could just do one or two things every day. And some of those goals for me to keep motivated is just to call a friend. It's interesting when you don't talk to anyone else except for those people in your house. You only have you and you and you and you to talk to. Just yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's so good just to break any patterns of any negative patterns that you have, to just talk to someone. And don't let the fear of inadequacy think, man, I don't have anything to talk to with anybody. They know no more than me. I don't know any more than them. But I found, to keep me motivated, about 2 friends a week, different friends. I'm calling. How you doing? What's going on? Tell me something good. And sometimes we even agree on text. Hey, I don't want to talk about coronavirus. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about anything. I want to talk about economy. Just tell me something good. What happened? You know, what are you discovering more about your family? What did your child do that surprised you? Those types of things are a wonderful, healthy way to keep motivated and keep it real.
So, you know, Nick, do you reckon any positive opportunities have come out of this whole like lockdown and confinement? I mean, in your interview again, you did mention rather than traveling to do like 35, 55 talks a year, maybe represent just 4 companies and, you know, do something regularly for them, right? I thought that was genius. And of course, you know, I think it's, they also call that the 80-20 rule. You know, you put 20% of the effort, or 20% of your clients can give you 80% of the revenue, or you're going like you're doing the 80% to give you the 20%. So you probably this confinement gave you this kind of like opportunity where you thought about this time. You're like, you know what? I don't need to travel all the time. I can do it this way.
To answer you directly, in the speaking industry, I believe we're on the cusp of a brand new era.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about commercial property. We're not just talking about operational. We're talking about mental motivational. Imagine some companies spending hundreds of millions of dollars on events. That's probably not going to happen for many, many, many years until, to me, there's a cure and mass gatherings. But before that even comes, I believe that CMOs are going to be actually teaming up with CMO, Chief Motivational Officers. And so instead of me having 55 clients just to go to an event and motivate a flash in the pan, I am looking for 4 or 5 big companies that would have me 2 or 3 times a year in person, maybe 4 times if they're international maximum, and work with smaller amount of people, but even do Zoom calls, because each department needs a motivational speaker to succinctly, specifically motivate them. So if they're a direct sales company, you could have a Nick Vujicic speak to those people on this level who are now learning this, or that department who's nurturing that group. And it's actually amazing, like a motivational doctor, an inspirational spark, and actually seeing data happen. It's very difficult to know on data how things actually was moved and the needle moved on an event where you have, let's say, 4 or 5 speakers. But the needle moving when Nick spoke to that department at that date for that long and specifically went through that personal development course with him to break through to the next level, I actually think there's going to be amazing, succinct analysis on ROIs, on using motivational speakers as true executive, strategic people for executives, but even motivational hand in hand for teams, and actually moving the needle in more departments. So, hey, thanks for mentioning that, because if in Abu Dhabi there's any companies who want Nick Vujicic as their chief motivational officer and using my branding and image and likeness and me coming alongside of your team, that's quite basically what I'm doing. And so it's that whole saying, working smarter and not harder. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
That's awesome, Nick. And trust me, when we finish this, you know that this video is going to be uploaded on Abu Dhabi events. So all the government of Abu Dhabi will be watching this later on. So don't worry about it. It's going to go live. And actually, my question was going to, you kind of answered the question, because I was going to ask you, what would you recommend the leaders of organizations right now? How could they motivate their teams and keep them like in good spirits? So I guess you kind of answered it right there.
So there's a couple things. First of all, if you're the chief leading officer, like a CEO or a COO, it would be good to get in the rhythm of first of all, you putting a weekly rhythm of a thought, a devotional, if you will, a meditation thing of you even sharing about your heart, and not really about the current situations, but something about your story or a team member's story, just so we can stop the rhythm of, you know, what's going on? What do we know? What don't we know? Because I feel like there is an undergirding pressure for leadership to even lie about what they know and what they don't know. We know that lying is not good. But we as leaders, we don't ever want to feel like we're vulnerable to say we don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And it's almost like saying less, if you don't know anything, saying less is more. And even when you say something, to put it in a rhythm to bring in that confidence, that you're not disconnected, because when you're disconnected, then the uncertainties continue to spread. You don't want a pandemic of uncertainty in your team, but a rhythm of confidence, a rhythm of reflecting, even sharing some things about your own company, how you started as an entrepreneur, how the company's, you know, something good that your company has done as well. You know, these rhythmic things of sharing something, looking back in the past, but inspire you for the day. Number one. Number two, being okay to say that we're not sure when things will change, but we're together. We're going to get through this. here are the short-term goals, and here's the reminding of the long-term goals. Our long-term goals may not change, but how we do that may. The methodology may change. And to even just have a leadership that in humility says that and admits that. It's like, man, now I know you got nothing to hide from me. And you're not faking anything. And so the third thing, though, is like, how can we together help each other? Because we're all in this together. And I think the reiteration of knowing that not only is our whole company in this together, the whole world is in this together. How this looks in the future, this is all a learning curve for all of us. And so we're not alone. We're going to get through this, and we're doing everything we can. Please communicate to us how we can do things better. I mean, talk about a learning curve. We're all learning how we're going to be able to do something new, better and better and better. But there's going to be a lot of learning at the beginning.
That's awesome. Nick, someone's just asking, I just took the question down. Tell us a few daily habits that we can cultivate while staying indoors right now.
Wash your hands like me. No, I feel like, especially when you need to be productive, obviously, if you need to even go into your master bedroom closet, right, and make like an office space. Some people have a bigger home, some people don't have a bigger home. I'm doing this call from my bedroom. And so for me, having 4 kids, I don't know if you can hear them screaming in the background or not at all, but there are times where mentally we need to do all that we can, that we can't control what we can't control, but we can control what we can. And so even having an environment within your home that makes you feel productive, or seeing the books, reminding yourself of the stories that once inspired you, maybe even picking up a book, rereading that, looking up seminars like this to be inspired, Abu Dhabi events, even putting up a painting or whatever you used to have in the office, making it in your home to make you feel productive, number one. Number two, people will be absolutely blown away, I believe, by the power of journaling. I have some regrets in my life. And one of the biggest regrets is that I stopped journaling. I wish that I journaled, because I think we quickly forget, like even in crisis for a second, right? We think we learned, like when I lost all my money in 2011, I had my own personal financial crisis in 2011. And when you're in crisis, you want to get out of the yuck, right? You get stuck in the yuck, you want to get out of the yuck, and you want to move forward. As soon as you get past that season of crisis, you don't ever want to think about it anymore. I wish that I journaled more and more, especially in the times of crisis, because I actually, when you take time to reflect and think, you actually realize that you're learning more lessons than you think you're learning. Looking back 5 years after a crisis, I realized that I didn't only learn 2 or 3 things on a business level. I learned 5 or 6 things from my last previous crisis. And journaling really brings it up. And after a crisis, 5 years later, you don't have to relive the crisis, you just replay it. What else could have I learned in that crisis? And you don't have to go through it again. We always learn the most lessons from our own experience. And as soon as we go through the crisis in our own experience, we don't want to think about the bad experiences. But I challenge you, even go back to the last experiences and realize the experiences that you actually haven't put into practice yet, that you actually have learned, but you just didn't realize it until you took time to journal, reflect, be self-aware.
Nick, you suffered from the previous crisis, like financially and everything else. And I remember, by the way, I have a similar story, but we'll talk about this some other time. Nick, when they talked about the financial crisis, at that time, if you remember, there was a lot of news about the fact that another crisis was going to happen again. Did you see any reports about that there's going to be another crisis, which is kind of like the financial, there's almost an economic crisis right now. Did you kind of see that? Or once you lifted yourself up, you kind of like maybe didn't pay too much attention? You didn't see this crisis coming?
No, I didn't see a crisis coming. Maybe because, in the country that I live in, I'm looking at real estate. I like real estate, and I'm looking at, when you look at real estate, when you look at the stock market, investments for the long term, you obviously hope to buy low and you hope to sell high. And but apart from that and those personal decisions that we've made, I obviously wasn't expecting, to me, no crisis like this was expected.
Oh, okay. So can you tell us, like, there's right now is a complex wave of emotions that's going through people's mind right now, okay? How can we control and cultivate them towards like positivity?
So first of all, again, you got to embrace what you're feeling and accept it, but then you can't sit there forever. And I feel like when you take just one step at a time and one day at a time with those very short-term goals, like I said, you build up your confidence back. I think what we lack is confidence because of the unknowns, because of the lack of rhythm. You know, we found subconscious and conscious security in it. That's now been taken away. To now build back up that security, I mean, it's crazy. You know, here in America, as I'm sure it's all worldwide news, what's happening with the issue with George Floyd, it's a tragedy. It's crazy. And it was just as people were saying, wow, I feel like we were just getting to a point where we were like, oh, I can just see a glimpse of confidence come back. And now this is like a chaos and justice that the country is screaming for. And that it's like, okay, wow, here's another curveball of uncertainty, but it's something to address. So as a society, first from a personal, then a family, then society, I feel like it comes back to your spirituality, your mental strength, and how you use your spirituality, your values, and your mental health to then take over those emotions if they hijack you. And to even reaffirm yourself in your value and to say, this is going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We don't know how the future looks like, but what we do know is we're going to take steps forward in our business, in our company, in our society. And confidence sometimes just takes time for the new norm to set in.
Yeah. Nick, I'm glad that you mentioned this right now because I want to touch upon a very interesting subject that a lot of people are asking right now through all these comments, okay? Can you share something from your childhood years? Like, that's really interesting. Like, what was it like for you and your family? And we were just like, you know, you just answered this question about how you take all that complex emotions and turn it positively, because as you mentioned in several, you know, different interviews about how it was, let's say your parents reacted when you were born. So can you just give us a little bit of a snippet for some people who haven't heard that story yet?
Absolutely. So I was in my mother's womb and I was born in 1982. They had ultrasounds done, 3 of them, but every time an ultrasound was done, they were so excited that they didn't check to make sure that I had arms and legs. And so when I was born, I said, surprise. And the doctor, they said, we're so sorry. He's never going to walk. Today I'm walking. He has a little foot, and they had no idea that with that little foot, I'd be able to type 53 words a minute on a normal computer. The doctors also said that, you know, he would never go to school. And the reason why they said that was because the law in Australia at that time, in that decade, was that special needs children were not allowed to go to school. And so we're, you know, so thankful that my mom challenged the system to say, why can't my son go to a school? And that was amazing, you know. And so to be able to conquer those barriers and build a bridge for all the other people, I think that there is no more powerful way to use the negative messages, negative emotions into a positive message, in that you can empathize and sympathize with someone else who's going through something. Now, many people won't know how it feels to have a child with no arms, no legs. Many people will not know how it feels to have no arms and no legs. I don't know how it is to be abused or oppressed. I don't know how it is to have a broken home. But when we go through what we go through, it means your story is being developed and your story is there to share one day. And so for me, I didn't see that. I didn't see that long-term goal. I didn't know that something beautiful could come from my broken pieces. And that when you don't get a miracle, that you can still be a miracle for someone else. And I didn't know that. And so unfortunately, during ages 8 to 12, I went through a depression. I attempted suicide at age 10. And I convinced myself that I would never get a job, never be independent, always be bullied. and never get married. Here I am today, married with 4 children,
Yeah.
and I'm living my, biggest, dreamiest life. And I think looking at my childhood, the biggest struggle was being alone, was being bullied, and was feeling like there was no hope. And when you have those emotions, I think many of us even bully ourselves or get bullied by people or oppressed or limited thinking, fear of rejection, fear of failure. And I now can empathize and sympathize with all those emotions and saying, hey, I didn't go through what you've been through, but I know how it feels to be alone. I don't know how it feels to go through that, but let me tell you, I want you to know you're going to be okay. And so when you that's a beautiful thing. And I feel like one of the greatest enriching moments of life is when you can actually share your story to help someone else. And I feel like we rob ourselves of that because we feel like we don't have a story to share. That's how your experiences and negative emotions eventually can remind you, hey, remember when you felt when you went through that crisis? Are you still here? Yes. No luck, chance, or coincidence. You have a story and you can encourage someone else as well.
Nick, if the janitor in your school didn't tell you you're going to be a motivational speaker, would you still be a motivational speaker?
I don't know. That's a wonderful, wonderful story, isn't it? Let me share that story for those who don't know that. So out of all the people, look, my mom and dad, they taught me to vacuum the floor. When I went to the store and I wanted something, they said, get your own money and figure it out, get it yourself and buy it yourself. My parents knew that if they gave me everything I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted it, that would not prepare me for a real world.
How old were you then when they told you
I
this?
was six.
Wow.
And then I started vacuuming the floor for $2 a week, saving up my money to then buy what I wanted. And it gave me dignity. It taught me prioritization. It taught me decision process making. It taught me goal setting because my parents said no. And so in that, it taught me patience. It taught me valuing. It taught me an attitude of gratitude, so much. Then at 17, my mom and dad, my dad, right? He said, Nick, you're going to have to be rich because many people don't understand that you're going to need a caregiver by your side to help you on a daily basis. Many people don't need a caregiver. You're going to need to start your own business, have employees to be your hands and feet. And that's when I wanted to become a financial planner or an accountant. I did a double degree in accounting and financial planning. I went into options trading as a teenager, real estate investor as a 19-year-old. My dad basically said that, and it was wonderful to have that foundation, education, entrepreneurship. But no one ever said, Nick, you should be a speaker, until I actually was with my just friends at school. And one day, this janitor came up to me and he said, Nick. I said, yes, Arnold. I knew him by name, 61-year-old Indian man. He said, you're going to be a motivational speaker. I said, what? He said, yeah, you're going to travel around the world. I said, no way, man. For 3 months, he said, please let me organize that first speech for you. I said, no way. You know that the biggest fear in the world is public speaking. Some people would rather die before they become a public speaker. So my palms were sweaty, my knees were shaking. 3 months. I said, no, I don't want to be. When you see people cry, you see that they found hope. And I felt at one time I did not have hope in my life. And now being able to share my story to give people hope, yeah, if the janitor didn't tell me, I don't know if I would be a speaker.
That is why, Nick, for me, as you just said, it's one thing about us using our emotions and trying to stay positive and everything else, but it's also very important to stay around positive people who can give you those words of affirmation, people who can kind of make you believe in yourself more or make you believe and see your potential. Because a lot of people kind of like don't see it themselves, but there are other people on the outside who can kind of like see that, which is beautiful. And that was, I think that was beautiful that he was able to tell you that.
2 things on that I would add is remember that you could be that person for someone else. And lastly, anyone can tell you till they're blue in the face, hey, you should do this, you should do that, you could do this, you could do that. But you until you do something different, nothing's going to change. And so it could have been that I heard it from him, but refused to try it. And it was experiencing that first time that made me convinced that, wow, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try it again. And when someone came up and said, no one's ever told me that I'm beautiful the way that I am, no one's ever told me that they love me, and they cried on my shoulder, that's when I knew a deep conviction. And this is important. One thing that motivates you, one thing that brings down all those barriers of fear and uncertainty is conviction.
Yeah.
You need courage to do something while you're afraid. You never do something of significance without fear, but you need courage to overcome that fear. Where does courage come from? Conviction. I talk about it on my Nick Vujicic podcast. Where do we get that conviction that despite what we know, despite what we see, we know that we know that we know what? And holding on to that, what we believe, pushes us all the way through. And don't be afraid of that. Try.
That's awesome. Nick, before I continue with the questions, honestly, I have to acknowledge all the followers, all the viewers right now. They're sending a lot of messages to you. There's so many messages from people here in Abu Dhabi saying, Nick, you need to come back to Abu Dhabi. Please come and visit us. There's so many people saying hello from all over the world. People saying that they love you. I saw several times there's a message from Samira. She says she loves you. So there's so many people here saying that I love you. Assalamu alaikum. All the messages of love. I just want you to like soak that in for a bit before I continue with more questions.
Thank you. Thank you. And love and greetings to the royal family and everyone there in Abu Dhabi and all the companies. I would like to bring my family one day to Abu Dhabi. And as things open up, if there are opportunities, simply go to nickvujicic.com and connect with my team.
Awesome. And we'll be very happy to host you here, Nick. Right now, Nick, what are you most grateful for?
I'm grateful for a second chance. I feel like a lot of this, even though it feels negative and hurtful, I get a second chance and a forced stop, pause, to make sure that I'm keeping my priorities in check, that I am the best husband I can be, the best father that I can be. And I think, a lot of people were saying this when this book came out, the greatest evil of great is good. And more as I'm getting older, I want to do less, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be impacting less. And so as a speaker, as a motivator, as an inspirational person who tries to give hope, I'm most grateful for that. I'm grateful that my wife loves me and I love her. I'm grateful for my kids and we're healthy. Those are the things that I'm most grateful for.
That's amazing. Nick, so, we look at your life as an inspiration. I mean, everything you just described, from your childhood experience, the love and the passion you have, obviously, for the work that you do, your family, of course, your wife and kids. But who is it that you draw inspiration from?
So first of all, my wife is like a superwoman. She's amazing. When I was a child, my parents were my greatest encouragers, inspirational pillars of strength. I would have to say that there have been stories that just inspire me, and you just never forget an inspirational story. Motivation is one thing, but inspiration is different. And it's the people you never forget. It's the stories of triumph and victory. And I love that you mentioned the Butterfly Circus. That's on YouTube. Please, if you haven't seen the Butterfly Circus and you have 22 minutes spare, please go to YouTube. Check out the Butterfly Circus short film that I was starring in, which is a tremendous story of redemption and hope. And where there's one line in there, the more what was it? The more victorious the triumph. The greater the struggle, the more glorious the triumph. And it's such a line that has changed lives. That film has changed lives. And sometimes it's just like the news, right? It's always easy to find bad news. It's easy to share and spread bad news, and it lasts longer than good news. there's a lot of inspirational things out there that you can find. You just got to dig a little bit. And finding that and holding on to that, I find myself every year, I try to read a book. It's either one book, two books. One book that I've read before and a book that I haven't. I only maybe read 2 books a year, apart from my spiritual Holy Scripture book. But everything else, it's like you've got to, no one's going to just feed it to you. You have to go and find that inspiration and be inspired. Many people in Abu Dhabi who are inspirational. You don't need a Nick Vujicic. Many Abu Dhabi people, are very inspirational.
Yeah.
And then it needs to have a lack of limbs,
Yeah.
And you sharing your story and finding those stories, I think are important. So I have to say the most inspirational person that I met was when I was 19. He was dying of Lou Gehrig's disease. He couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, he could only blink. And he started this website to encourage bedridden people. He couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, but he started this website. And I'm like, wow, if this man can't walk, can't talk, but he's spreading hope. I can walk, I can talk, I'm going to go for it. So it's people like that that really like motivated me, inspired me really to just dream crazy big.
That's amazing. What do you look forward to doing most after this lockdown?
Getting back into a rhythm. I'm hungering rhythm, not certainty, but rhythm. I'm out of rhythm right now, and with relocating our family as well, there's a whole new chapter for us, and so we're probably, but at the same time, enjoying this time of a new beginning. It's just a little stressful, a little bit, packing up, moving, selling a home, looking for another one. But eventually, guess what? We find our rhythm.
That's amazing. And Nick, so tell us this. What can people do to give in society to find ways to like express their gratitude? I mean, you are doing what you're doing best right now, sharing your stories on the platform and, through Zoom, your podcast. I am one of your subscribers on the podcast, by the way. So
Thank you.
I have to tell you that I love it. I'm one of your, as you mentioned, over 5,000 subscribers. I am one of the subscribers. But what do you think that people can do to give back to society right now?
Maybe getting behind a nonprofit organization, maybe cooking meals for someone, thinking of how can we help the elderly in any way, shape, or form. I actually feel, especially to all the governments, I'm grievous. I'm very much sad for the next generation who it was just 2018, 2019 that the whole world was talking about this thing called social emotional learning.
Yes.
Which goes beyond academics, which teaches you values and morals and not just discipline, but how to create your own decision-making process. I feel like if you're not a younger person, to reach out to a younger person and see how they're doing and bring in those morals and values and check in with them. See how you can inspire them, challenge them. Because I feel like we know that the next generation are our leaders for tomorrow. And as a society, that's why I'm also thankful for really investing into the youth. It's not just the people in need, which is really important, especially the poverty around the world, giving back to those. I mean, when we have crisis in a first world country, we feel pain, we feel panic, we feel difficulty. Imagine in the third world places, how much more they need our help, number one. Number two,
absolutely.
The next generation, and that's why I'm excited as well. For any parents at home, actually, I'm going to give you a website. Write it down, aiacurriculum.org. aiacurriculum.org. In fact, we want to bring it to the United Arab Emirates. We are so thankful for Abu Dhabi and the understanding of importance of investing into the youth with emotional learning. We've actually given free lessons for parents, for teachers, for school systems during this quarantine time at aiacurriculum.org from kindergarten all the way to grade 12 to teach values. I feel like that's really important, to instill a pulse check, values, encouragement, inspiration, and even, you know how I was saying about how we need to dig deep and find inspirational things? I reckon there's a couple young people in Abu Dhabi doing incredible things and hosting them and putting them on camera and putting them on the radio. How are you feeling? What are your friends saying? What are you saying to your friends? How are you making a positive difference? So that everyone's waiting for an idea. I feel like they're out there, and we're going to dig them up and help them and empower them, inspire people with their story as well.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things that I think within the values, which I remember from looking at one of your on the last interview, when you talked about fight, flight, or freeze, like how you approach situations, because this is not something we're taught in schools. So I love that this is something that you can. This is probably like the last question, because I think we only have about 6 minutes left. But if you can just touch upon this, because I love them, and I think the young people today need to hear that, Nick.
Look, I just want you all to know that I love you. You're beautiful. You're unique. There is not another you. There are times where my dreams have come true that have gone beyond my imagination.
Yeah.
But your value has nothing to do with your success, who knows you, who follows you on social media. It's you knowing how beautiful you are. And the first person to give you and your future a chance is you. Sometimes we stand in the way of our full potential. And I just want you to know that I believe in you and I love you. And no matter what chapter of crisis or obstacle you're in, you're going to get through this. Daily, make that decision. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to push through. I'm going to do my best. And with faith, family, and friends, I'm going to conquer every obstacle in my way.
God bless you, Nick. Thank you so much. That was really, really, really beautiful. Honestly, I think I need to go back to this video again and again. I took down so many notes, and I'm sure a lot of people out there took out their paper and pen and they just wrote down a lot of notes. There's a lot of messages coming in, Nick. People are saying, thank you so much for these awesome tips. Of course, they need to go to your YouTube, you listen to your podcast, and even get even more information. I have personally, I'm telling you, I've got like pages and pages of notes. It's crazy. You know, any final words, Nick, that you have for us before we let you go?
No, but I'm just excited that even in a time like this, that a powerhouse of Abu Dhabi and Nick Vujicic are doing something virtually. And I'm actually excited deep down that something's going to come out of this. Whether
Absolutely.
you get letters and feedback that was encouraging, or, you know, a company says, Nick, we want to bring you out, or the government wants me out in Abu Dhabi for a long-term or social-emotional learning curriculum, helps a teenager to never give up. That's amazing. That's all I am. I'm just honored and thankful. And inshallah, I want to come to Abu Dhabi again and love the people there, love the food there. Can't wait to bring my whole family one day.
Shukran, shukran. Thank you so much, Nick. Barakallah feek. You know, God bless you. I said that in Arabic. And assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we will see you back very soon.
Thank you so much.
All the best. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. That was Nick Vujicic, as you know, the man who was born with no arms or legs. But in my opinion, I think he was born with wings. Wings that you can't see. There are wings that help him to fly and share his love. And most importantly, hope. For those of you who are despairing during a time that, you know, this is very different for all of us. We've never experienced such a crisis. But when you see someone like Nick and take in all the information, all the tips that he said, and one of the best lines that I wrote down, as he said, is that the greater the struggle, the more glorious the triumph. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a line in a quote that you should live by. That's all for myself and from the team at Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism, the Events Bureau. We are very honored that you joined us today. Please stay tuned, follow Abu Dhabi events. We have a lot more virtual events, and after the whole lockdown is over, we're going to have events here in Abu Dhabi. We would love you to come and visit. Thank you for sharing, thank you for contributing, thank you for your love and attention, and God willing, inshallah, we will see you here very soon. Good night and stay safe.